All right, okay. So sorry for the late start. I'll introduce the event right now. Welcome all of you. We're so happy that you're here today and joining us on this online session. Today we're having our first part of Bay CSC's CS plus Social Good speaker series featuring Pamela Fox. And before we get started on the event, just want to briefly introduce who we are. So we are the Bay Area Youth Computer Science Council. We are a group of high schoolers, and we want to increase the access and inclusion in computer science through hosting events like this one. We used to host offline events as well, and really do whatever we can do. And just a few notices before we actually start the event. First, we will be, as you have probably noticed, we will be recording this session. I don't think your faces will be included. So yeah, and we will also be, so regarding the chat section, especially when we later enter into breakout rooms, please allow the chat section to be clear and like stay on topic in your discussion, not going off of random tangents. And at last, also for any questions, if you have any questions, we'll be monitoring the chat, so you can feel free to type it into the open chat, and we'll be having a quick Q&A session at the end, I believe. All right, so I'm done now. I'm gonna ask Ashish to introduce Pamela for us.
Yeah, so our speaker for today is Pamela Fox. Pamela Fox is the creator of the computer science and programming courses for Khan Academy. Before that, she worked at Wobot, Coursera, and Google. She graduated from University of Southern California with a BS, MS in computer science and minors in 3D animation and linguistics. Now I'm going to hand over the mic to Pamela Fox to give us her talk for today.
All right. Am I now? Yes, I am. Cool. So I'll share my. While I'm doing that, I love. I like this to be interactive because it can be not that fun to just be in Zoom calls all day, just staring at a screen. So I would love if people would post in their chats introductions like first name, what city or school you're from. And then also if you have any thoughts about how computer science has impacted your education so far, if you have any ideas about that already before I go into this. So great. All right. So I think this is a great topic, computer science and social good. Hopefully everything we do in the world, we do with a bit of social good in mind, and computer science has a lot of potential for improving the world. The way that I tend to do it is in the education space. That's what I'm drawn to. But in the upcoming talks, you'll hear other things as well. So you heard my background. I went to USC for computer science, linguistics, and animation. And I started delving a little bit into computer science and education then, both with class projects and with side projects. So one thing that I thought was really fun was I was a student in the Serious Games laboratory. A serious game is a video game that has an educational goal. So one game that we did, we worked with a local bank and we created a game about financial literacy. So it was like the game of life. So you'd be in a car and you'd go to a house and you'd buy the house, and then you would see that your financial prospects, went way down because now you had all these mortgage payments. So things like that we would do in the game. But I also had side projects. So if you ever played Boggle, I made an online version of Boggle called Word Hunter Extreme. And every time you would get a word, it would actually show you the definition of the word. Either from a real dictionary or from Urban Dictionary. So it was semi-educational depending on the mode. So that was really fun to to do those projects and to go to college. And then after that, I went into my career. So as she said, I worked at Google in developer relations. So that's where I was showing people how to use the Google Maps API, which was really super fun. So I was also learning, how do you write documentation? How do you make good demonstration examples? How do you give talks? Learning all of these things about sharing knowledge. Then I went to Coursera as a front-end engineer. And Coursera is a website where you can take courses from universities all over. I'd love to know in the chat if any of you have taken a Coursera class or thought about taking one. Just say which one you've taken. And so I thought that was really neat. I got to work with professors from all over. But I did also get a little bit jealous of the professors that they got to create online courses, because I thought that was so interesting. So then I joined Khan Academy, where I actually got to create courses, and that's where I created computer programming and computer science courses. And I also do software engineering. So it's a really great combination of computer science and education for me. And I'm also curious if any of you have used Khan Academy. Those of you on video, you could just raise your hand if anyone has. Yay! But also in the chat, if you used it for any topics, I'd love to know. Computer science, science, math, etc. Lots of good stuff on there. Okay, so let's talk about how computer science and education overlap. How have we managed to use computer science to innovate in education? So the first category of things is digital learning experiences, right? Taking the experiences that we would normally do, or before that we would do off the computer, and taking those online. So starting with just videos, right? There's actually a lot you can do with a video online. So here's a video from Coursera. And Coursera, we've got the video, we can play the video, but we can also take notes, and that can be useful for us to remember what we thought was important about the video. We've got a transcript. We have a transcript. So if we're unable to hear for whatever reason, if we're hard of hearing, or we just don't have headphones or sound at the time, we can use the transcript. In Coursera, there's also in-video questions. So if you're halfway through your video, you might see a question pop up. And that's great because it keeps you on your toes and makes sure you're paying attention and not falling asleep while watching videos online. So online video is pretty straightforward, but there's also a lot that you can do with them. And there's some things, a lot of things we can do on online videos that we can't do in person. So I can change the playback rate to 1.5x. And when you're in the class with your teacher, you can't make your teacher speak at 1.5x. So great benefit of online is to turn everyone into a chipmunk so you can learn faster. So online video is one example. Computerized practice is a big one, right? So Khan Academy has thousands of exercises now and all sorts of different exercises. So we've got multiple choice, we've got text input for math or entering formulas. Let me help my internet out. So here's one example. I actually don't know the answer, so I'll just randomly check. So if I get something wrong, I can get feedback and I can try again, right? This is something that you couldn't necessarily do on a piece of paper. If this was on a piece of paper and you exit, you get it wrong, you would need a colleague, a classmate, or a teacher to help you understand why did you get it wrong, right? So there's some things we can do with online practice that we can't do with paper. And we can even do things as fancy as coding challenges, right? This one I already did, but I can keep working on it here. Oh, I ate the app. Oh, so good. Okay. So coding challenges online, very fun. These are the ones that I make, and I just think it's so cool. And here I can give automated feedback again. If a student is not quite doing it the right way, and I've seen that before, I actually have an automated grader that says, oh, actually, maybe you want to do it this way, right? So this is scaling the teaching assistant to be online, so that like literally millions of people have done this, and that's something that'd be hard to do in person. And then we can make virtual simulations on the computer. So there's things that it's just hard for everyone to be able to do in real life. Like we can't all launch fireworks. It did kind of sound this year like everybody was launching fireworks, at least around here. But in theory, we're not all supposed to be launching fireworks. But with a fireworks simulator, we can try to make fireworks. So this is a simulation from our Pixar in a Box course to show how they do all their sorts of effects. So we can experiment like, okay, if we were launching fireworks on a planet with much stronger gravity, you know, what happens, or what happens if the wind is super strong, or it changes direction, or there's more air resistance. There's all sorts of things we can experiment with that would be very hard to do in the real world because we can't just change gravity, right? So simulations allow us to experience things in new ways. And then I also wanted to show lab exchange simulations. These are simulating lab experiences. And this I think is very crucial, especially this year. So this is a gel electrophoresis station. And this is something that some scientists have access to, and maybe even some schools do. This is for DNA analysis. But very few students would have access to this. But this is so neat. Like you've got the entire station set up there. You even have the trash can. And so you can experience the whole process of gel electrophoresis online and really see what is it like to do this process. And this makes it just much more real than just reading an article about gel electrophoresis, which I can't pronounce, sorry. So I think simulations can be a really compelling way to educate online. And then personalization, right? So computers are very good at storing data, and then they can use that data to help personalize experiences. So we start off with simple things like progress tracking, right? The computer can remember what you did, remember what you haven't done yet, and remember what you need to do again. So in Khan Academy, we do a lot of progress tracking so that you don't have to keep track. The computer keeps track for you. And that's a great start. But what's even better is if you can do recommendations and say, well, based on what you've done so far, we think that this would be the best thing for you to do next. We have a little of that on Khan Academy. So we've been working on a particular topic, and you did get proficient in some skills a few months ago. You might be rusty in those skills. So we'll actually pop up and say, hey, maybe you'd like to take a mastery in those skills because you might have forgotten. And that helps you revisit those skills and build that memory. Coursera has recommendations at the whole course level where they say like, well, you took this course, we think you'd like this course, right? So I think that, that can be really compelling to be able to have those personalized recommendations. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg for personalization. I don't know if anybody's read The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson, but it's a story that's an inspiration for Khan Academy. It's about a little girl who has, sorry, I'm losing my voice. So a little girl has a book, and this book comes up with new stories to tell her based on her current life situation, and completely makes up those stories, and where the moral of the story will help the little girl figure out what she should do next in life. So that's just incredibly personalized, right? So imagine if you could have personalization at that level, which is figuring out of all the things you need to learn in the world, at this point, this is exactly what's best for you and the best way of delivering it. That is the holy grail for personalization, I think. Okay, so finally, global access. So computer science invented the internet, and the internet has enabled us to bring all sorts of education to different places. So it means like Coursera, people from all over the world can take courses at Stanford, and people from Stanford can take courses in Hong Kong, right? So we can all take courses from these colleges all over and experience, what is a course like that's taught by this university. And that's really powerful, especially now that we're in a pandemic and we're not allowed to leave our house. we can all take courses at Stanford or Hong Kong, right? We can also translate content very easily, right? So we've made, thousands of exercises. We can have those translated so that people in any language can experience them. So we have an exercise in Hindi and that same exercise in Czech on Khan Academy. So I think that's really cool to be able to see the same content, but in the vast diversity of languages we have out there. But we also need to remember that not everybody has good internet access. And this is something we're realizing now as well, because people without internet access are being disparately impacted by this pandemic. So that's something really crucial that we have to remember. So there's something called Colibri, which tries to bring education to educational content to people who have very poor internet connections and just have mobile devices. And so they figured out how to do very smart downloading. So whenever there's any chance that there's some amount of signal, it tries to download a little bit of the data onto the device so that you can play that later. And they have all sorts of other techniques to try and get that data to remote areas that don't have great internet access. So a lot of ways that computer science can help with bringing education to a global audience. So I just showed a lot of the positives of computer science and education and the innovations that have come about. But anytime we try to do something that's good, we also need to consider whether it does have any negative effects, any unintended harmful impact, if it leads to more inequities. So this is what I would love for all of you to discuss, is all the things I've just shown. What are the possible negatives? What are the risks? So we are going to do breakout rooms for that. So there'll be about 5 people in each breakout room. And I just would love for y'all to brainstorm what's potentially a negative about this, just so we keep that in mind so that we're responsible creators and users. So let's see about making those breakout rooms. I have to find the the Zoom thing. There it is. So we'll go more breakout rooms. All right. Recreate. Recreate. Does that look good? Yep. All right. I'm going to open the rooms now, and I'll stop by each of them.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Okay, so I think the question was, what are the possible negative impacts of using computer science for global education? Do you have any initial thoughts, Austin?
Well, I'm certainly thinking about one thing I saw on the slides, which was inequality in computer science and education. So I can definitely think of a lot of inequalities that might happen with computer science, especially in areas that may not have good access to computers, technology, or just good education in general. And that's the only other example I can think of for the negatives of computer science would be possibly using computers for less than stellar purposes. Do you guys have any thoughts?
I was thinking that also it can sometimes, a certain amount of success can depend on students' background knowledge and kind of family support and that kind of thing. So I think a lot of times what I've seen with computer science is when you have kids that have parents with high education backgrounds, they seem to gravitate more towards it. And there's and there's expectations from their families. And so if you have families that maybe aren't as well versed in the importance, that they might not support their kids as much, or I don't know, this is coming out wrong, but it's just, there's just kind of a prior knowledge and kind of background thing that sometimes can affect it. And if you don't have the right people in there and getting that family connection, which a lot of times it's hard to do, especially in remoter areas and that kind of thing, then it's going to be harder for the kids sometimes to get the most out of it, because they need more support than just in the school or in the class.
Yeah, going off of
I
that.
agree with what's been said about the equity issues. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You can speak.
Okay. One of the things that came into my mind was, that expression, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. That once you're in this mindset of, I'm going to create a program to do such and such, that all problems are going to be addressed by making a computer program, when maybe, there's other ways to look at things other than making a program.
Yeah. What I was gonna add was I feel like the most negative effect of online classes is that, there's a higher rate of failure in the sense of tangibly understanding the concepts, especially with things like chemistry, physics, math, and everything like that. It's been shown that people who do homeschooling, they are less likely to pursue things like math, and their test scores are a little bit below average for those concepts. And a lot of my friends are affected that way. My friend, she's been homeschooled all her life. She does amazing in English and writing, and she's ahead of everyone in that. But I remember she was a senior, and she was she barely understood how to factor, you know what I mean? And it's stuff like that. It's so much harder to understand things that are more mathematically based online. And I think because of that, with online classes, you could just do it over and over and over again, or you could a lot of people use the math, they just use a calculator to cheat. It's not as it doesn't have as much integrity to it, and it is also it can't truly test your knowledge and your ability to do things quickly and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Do you think some of that might have to do with parents, if they're doing homeschooling? I've actually talked to parents, sixth grade parents, where they say, I can't help my kids with math. And so if you're having a person doing homeschooling, and I know that there's they can get help from teachers and do little meetings and stuff. But if a lot of the stuff they're doing online and there's nobody there, exactly when they need it to help them, do you think that might be part of it? And also what you were talking about, chemistry and physics, I love chemistry and physics, but if you don't do the labs, that's a big part, and you definitely can't do that. Well, I guess you could do some, it depends on where you live, but a lot of it, you can't do those kind of labs at home. So that's, I think that would be tough. But I just wonder with what you're talking about with math, it's interesting what you're saying. And I just wonder how much of that is the mindset that they're getting from their support system of, well, yeah, but I'm not a math person. And I would think the same thing might happen with computer science.
Yeah, well, this is going to be from my experience right here. I remember when we transferred, I've taken online math classes and physical math classes, and I feel online math classes don't challenge you as much. They don't test you on more real world application of the knowledge. And because of that, being able to do the homework on your own time, doing everything on your own time, since it's so unstructured, it gives you a lot of free room, but also the easiness of the class doesn't really nail the content into you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I also feel like since like we associate our computers with information overload, you know, like we're constantly learning things, it's easier to forget it, you know? Like if you read an article like on your computer, I feel like it's that you're going to be less likely to remember it than reading something physically. You know what I
That's
mean?
interesting. There's actually some research on that as far as like having a physical book and there's something about three-dimensional thinking or something. But thank you for that. That's since I'm going to be teaching pretty soon, and I'm probably going to have to be doing some online math with my kids. That's a really good input for me, what you just said about the, I mean, I kind of feel like I was thinking towards that anyway, but hearing it from an actual student is super helpful.
Does anyone else have any other negative impacts they want to bring up? Risks or pitfalls or inequities?
I can't really think of anything else right now, to be honest. I think a lot.
What about the effect when we make all education online or more education online? How does that affect the people who create the education?
Well, first of all, you're going to have to adapt their courses and their content to an online platform, and there can be physical challenges in that. But like, assuming you get across all the barriers of transferring your content online, there's the matter of whether or not your content is actually going to be like paid attention to by students. I, for one, can attest to the fact that sometimes in online classes, people just don't pay attention, whereas in school, they kind of have to. So that could be a challenge online too. Some people, if they don't absolutely want to learn it, they might just be there, and they might just, how do I put this nicely? They might waste time for others. You know, they might take up space and waste others' resources.
Do you think having things more interactive will help with that? Like if they're not sitting there paying attention to a teacher talking for more than like 5 minutes or so until they have to do something. So they have to respond to something. They have to like go on to, I don't know, if like a Padlet or Flipgrid or some other kind of thing where they have to, or put it in the chat immediately or something where so they're not ever just sitting for more than 5 or 6 minutes having to try to listen. Do you think that would help with that?
I think it could definitely help. Like, I mean, if you really just don't care, there's nothing that can be done. But for the most part, a lot of people, if once they're faced with a challenge like interactive content, they might do better than if there were no interactive content at all. So yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah, like what my physics teacher would do is he'd have us solve the problems with him through like Teams on Google, on Microsoft, and like he'd ask like small questions like, oh, what is like we'd be plugging in all the equations together. He'd be like, oh, what's mass one, or oh, what does all of this together equal, and stuff like that. That way there wasn't as much pressure to be right by the rest of the classroom, but he could still tell who's listening.
Do you think as a computer scientist you'd be able to design those tools that that solve all these problems?
I honestly don't really think so. I think being in school has more of a like specific like setting to it that like causes us to behave a certain way. Humans, they act differently in different situations. So to be doing this from your home, like, I think first off that'd mess with like basic feelings, because your room and your home in general is supposed to be like a place where you feel comfortable, and to invite like to just like randomly smash together the like school environment and like your home environment. I think a lot of unhealthy habits can arise from that. Along with that, I don't think schools can, like online school could really like hold you to the same standard, because like no one's going to be actually there. You know what I mean?
for sure.
What are they going to do? Give you detention?
So it looks like we're being pulled back from our breakout room. If we're asked to present, who's gonna share one thing we talked about or learned? I nominate Sarah. Bye.
I think one of our students should.
I guess I volunteer.
Thanks, you guys. That was really helpful for me to hear from you guys.
Yeah, thank you. That was a very good discussion. Right.
Wait, Austin, are you speaking? Because I'm about to go brush my teeth.
I guess I can speak if necessary.
All right, thank you.
No worries. I have 2 seconds.
How have it been so far?
Pretty amazing. You meet a lot of cool people.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ooh. What are some? No. What are some stories?
Stories. I mean, all of their like presentations, you just learn a lot. Yeah. Instead of just being at home or like something you wouldn't have been able to do.
Right.
All right. Do we have everyone back? Yeah, I think the rooms are closed. So, okay, cool. So I know we had a really fascinating discussion in our breakout room. Hopefully there were some interesting discussions in the other rooms as well. And now I want to move on to the tinkering portion because we're trying to incorporate all sorts of interactivity here today. So let's link to the slides again because they have the links. So I've designed some templates of educational web pages that y'all could modify and that hopefully you can modify even if you haven't done programming before. Just so that you get a taste of, what are the ways that you can use programming for education. So the first one is an educational videos playlist, and these are all videos on AI and ethics because that's something I've been thinking a lot about lately. But you can make this video playlist be whatever you want. You just go down here to this data and you replace the YouTube IDs, the titles.
Pamela, your screen is not shared.
Thank you. All right, now shared, okay. All right, so this is the playlist one. So you would modify the videos here and then you could have your own playlist with little discussion prompts under the videos. So that's the first one on this list here. The next one is Timeline. These are all in Replit, which is a great coding editor, which some of you may have used. So this one makes this cool timeline. I've been reading this book called Stamped from the Beginning, which is a history of racism. So these are all quotes from racist quotes from famous people. So you can modify this timeline to be whatever you think is interesting to share information about, right? That's the thing, is that everybody brings their own topics to the world that they think are useful to share. That's why we want to get a lot of people in computer science and in education. That's the timeline. Then we have a quiz. And this is a quiz about slavery because it's also, I've been reading this book for a long time now. So in this quiz, we've got questions and then we can check and we've got little explanations. So you can turn this into a quiz about anything. You just change the questions and you change the answers, and then you just stick a little attribute in the HTML to say which one's correct. And then finally, if you don't want to do any coding, you could also make a wireframe using Google Slides to propose some sort of new idea for an educational program. So, so what I'd love to do is have people go off and do some tinkering, and we can stay here in the main room so that if you have any technical questions, I can answer them in the chat. And then we'll come back at 11:20. So 13 minutes of tinkering. Hopefully we can do a couple things. Okay. All right. Break.
Sorry, can you re-explain some of the um can you re-explain like some of the exercises? I don't quite understand the Google Slides exercise and the HTML quiz.
Um, so the Google Slides is just if you'd rather do like visual designing than doing a little code tinkering. Just what you would do is like think of some, think of an idea for something educational, an educational software, educational program, and then you can use Google Slides drawing capabilities to mock that out. What's called a wireframe. A wireframe is the wires, the shapes that make up an app or a site. So I was using things like squares and triangles and smiley faces and whatnot, right? So maybe this is like a video player site, where people are discussing things along the video player, for example. So that's what you can do in Google Slides, is to try out making a wireframe of an idea. This is something you would do if you're pitching an idea at a hackathon or to a venture capitalist or something like that. So that's that one. And then the quiz, here you can make a quiz about any topic, right? So we could say like, what fruits did tangerines come from? Remember. And then you can just change each of these, say like oranges plus lemons. Aren't tangerines a hybrid? I don't know. Oranges plus bananas. Oranges plus grapefruit. Right, so you make up a question and answers, and hopefully your question makes more sense than mine. And then you can try it out. So there's just a little attribute here that you need to put on whichever one is correct, right? So if that first one's correct, I move the attribute, and then it says that tangerines came from oranges and lemons, clearly. And you can also add a little explanation that shows up and say, tangerines are the hybrids of blah, blah, blah. So the idea there is that you can make a quiz on any topic that you think is interesting and want to quiz people on.
All right, thank you.
Yep. We have 30 seconds. All right. It's 11:20. Very curious to see if that was enough time for people to do stuff. And generally, if this, whole tinkering thing works in a Zoom. So is anyone interested in showing their idea, what they've tinkered on? You could either screen share or if there's a link, you could paste your link in the chat and I could show.
I guess I can share my quick thing. I modified the personal one here. Let me share screen. Okay, so I did the personal. Wait, I don't actually know what it's called again. Oh, wrong slide. But oh well. And so I didn't actually have the time to like find another new person, so I just did a test person and said that he didn't do anything yet. And now, yeah, this other person is added onto the code. So,
sorry, if you go up
yeah,
to
if I had done more research, then I can put more information in there, and there is a.
Where's the wait, should I stop sharing so that, oh, here we go. Okay. Cool. So this is Jessica's project. Test person. Nice. That's a great start. Yeah, I didn't know how much we could do in this amount of time, but now you know. He didn't do anything yet. Well, sometimes doing nothing is better than doing something. It really depends on what you do. So that's great. Now you know how to add to the timeline, and now you can customize that timeline for anything. Anyone else want to show?
I can show mine. I didn't get very far though, but I'll try to share my screen.
Sweet. Yay.
So Jess, we can see your screen, but you're muted.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I didn't get very far. I just did one question. So I just have like one question about CS history, and that's who was the first computer programmer? Anybody want to answer it?
I know too much.
Oh, I don't know. I could be wrong, but wasn't it like Ada Lovelace?
Let's
see.
Yes. Yay.
Right.
I did a little fact, a short fact.
Nice.
Nice.
Yay. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
All right. So I managed to change one question on the Khan Academy thing, which I'll put in the chat.
Okay.
I changed the first question.
I don't know.
You could totally just Wikipedia this, by the way.
That's cheating. Got it. Oh, Sumir.
Yeah.
That's great. And you added on to the same thing. Awesome.
Thank you.
Cool. Does anyone else want to one more share, and then we can see if there's any Q&A? Oh, Supriya?
Yeah, I can. Okay, cool. So I really like chemistry, so I made my quiz about chemistry. Although I might have gotten, so like what is, my first question is what is NaOH? And then I have like 4 options. Sodium hydroxide.
I did mine on something similar. I did it on biochem.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's sodium hydroxide. And then my next question is what's a catalyst? Yeah, I went a little silly for this one.
I don't know. I think it's a specific compound that turns green in the presence of light.
First,
Okay,
Uh-oh.
that's not it.
is it the
That's
first
the
one?
first one.
Yeah.
It's the first
Yeah, it's
one,
the
yeah.
first one.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to remove that explanation, but
Yeah.
yay.
Yay. That's great. I'm actually on the science team, so I can share that with my chemistry colleague who makes all the AP Chem.
Oh, nice.
Everyone getting AP Chem flashback.
AP Chem was so fun.
I guess I'll find soon.
Is it fun?
Not sure. Yeah, I know. It's a fun. Okay, well, I guess this would be the time for our Q&A session.
Yeah. All right. Well, if anybody has any links that they want to share in the chat that we didn't have a chance to look at, feel free to share. Thank you everyone who did share. It's cool to see that people were actually able to do some amount of tinkering in such a small amount of time. So yeah, I think I have like one. Yeah, this is just if you want to learn more, take CS classes in high school. You can learn CS and programming online, as we've just seen. You can also join or start after school clubs, as all of you know who are in the club that put this on. So now if there's any Q&A in our remaining minutes, happy to discuss.
I can kick it off. That's okay. My question is, what is your favorite part of working at Khan Academy?
My favorite part is seeing what students make. That's why I really love doing the show and tell. My favorite part is always show and tell, because the thing is, like, I can come up with something, but I'm not surprised by it because it came from my brain, and I know my brain. I've lived with it for a long time. But when somebody else makes something, I can just be so completely surprised by it and impressed by it. Like, wow, I wouldn't have thought of that. I wouldn't have. So I love to look to see, we have our hot list in computer programming on Khan Academy. So I love looking on the hot list to see, what is it that people are making today? It's, games or visualizations or just funny jokes or whatever. And I'm always just really surprised and impressed because that's so cool that these people, there's so many, thousands of people all over the world that are making, these completely novel programs online and sharing it. So I just love that.
Awesome, thank you.
I have another question actually. After your introduction. So what's the difference between working at Coursera and working at Khan Academy?
There, it's pretty different. So at Coursera, I was a front-end engineer, so I was doing almost 100%, pretty much 100% engineering. At Khan Academy, I split my time between the content teams and the engineering teams. So a lot of times I'm developing content, but if I need to do engineering, I can do that too. And I like that because to me, like it's all part of the learning experience online, right? There's the words and the text and the videos, but then there's the actual experience of going through that online, the navigation through the site and all that stuff. So I really like being able to do both content and engineering. And I also just like how it uses more parts of my brain. And I love to exercise all the parts.
It sounds pretty interesting because I used both the platforms and I really appreciated both the platforms. So yeah, that was nice.
I have a question. What advice would you give to anyone who wants to start to get into computer science?
I mean, I guess just the first thing to know is mindset. It's computer programming is not easy. Like sometimes you'll hear that it's easy because people are trying to say that to get more people doing it. It's not necessarily easy. Most things aren't actually easy. It'll be hard at times because you will have no idea why your program doesn't work. And you might be banging your head about it, and then you go to sleep, and then the next day you just figure it out. So computer programming, it's not necessarily easy, but there is a huge amount of resources that can help you when you get stuck. And that's what's so powerful about programming is the accessibility of the resources for when you do get stuck, because you will get stuck because it is hard. And it's even possible that no one has encountered that bug before. So if you get stuck and you get frustrated, do not give up entirely. Just know that everybody faces that. Even senior software engineers after 20 years will have moments where it just doesn't make sense, right? And then the other thing I like to keep in mind to tell people is that computer science and computer programming encompass a huge diversity of things, and you might like one part of it and not like another part of it. So maybe you do an intro to databases class and you actually think that's boring, but then maybe you do a web design class and you think that's super fun. Great, do the web design and don't do databases. Or maybe you might be the opposite. Like you might think like, wow, it's really neat to figure out how to organize data into different tables and join it together and stuff. But you might find web design really frustrating because you just can't get it to look right. So that's the thing about computer programming and computer science. There's so many different areas of it these days that it's totally fine if you don't like all of it. You just find the part of it that you do like, and that's what you can focus on. And that is why I like the AP Computer Science Principles class, because I think it does a great job of showing you a diverse range of the fields of computer science. It really does show quite a lot of it. So I do suggest that as class. And if there's a unit in that class you don't like, it's fine. You just don't have to focus in on that when you go into it.
Yeah, thank you. That advice is very useful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, there you go. Like Ari said in the chat, like you maybe like the hardware aspects and more like coding. And yeah, I relate to that. Well, I relate to how like I like specific aspects of computer science, not liking some parts of it. But and yeah, so we're all, but I'm still open to computer science. I guess the point I was trying to make was like even if yeah, like Pamela said, even if I wasn't necessarily open to all or like all of them. Okay, so I think we're ready to close unless any other questions, which like please share as we if you want to ask.
I have one last question, and I'm not sure if there's like a definite answer to it, but that is like how long does it take to create a curriculum for a course?
That's a great question. So when we say curriculum, we actually think of curriculum as entailing both like the like the videos and the challenges and the exercises, but also how do you deliver that in a classroom with lesson plans and pacing guides and stuff like that. So a lot of what we put on Khan Academy isn't technically a curriculum because it doesn't necessarily have the full classroom experience. That's just a technical note. My computer programming course is probably the closest thing to a curriculum. And it's hard to say how long it took that to develop because I first gave that in person. So that was based off of dozens of intro to JavaScript workshops that I'd given in the Bay Area to women as part of the Girl Develop It organization. And I'd refined that over time. So then when I got to Khan Academy, it actually didn't take that long to put that into an online format because I'd already given it in many forms. So I think it probably took 6 months to write the scripts, record the videos, the challenges. The challenge graders took the most amount of time because I have to anticipate every possible way you're going to write code correctly and incorrectly and have graders for that. So yeah, maybe about that for that one, but there's huge variation and there's a lot that goes into it.
I have one last genuine question. So as someone who's created content for Coursera and Khan Academy, you know how easy it is to access and learn computer science through the internet, right? So with higher education, where do you place its value when going into computer science?
You mean in terms of, do you need higher education to go into computer science?
In that sense, and what aspects do you think are more important with higher education? Should you be looking for a strong alumni network or, a school with good research facilities, stuff like that? What stuff should you look for and what things can you take out of it if you do pursue higher education?
Yeah, that's great. So I'll say that I didn't get a lot of programming experience from my undergraduate and graduate classes. I got more theoretical, the theory of computer science from them, which was valuable. But in order to get enough programming experience, I was doing programming on the side. And I was actually teaching programming workshops at my college because I didn't think there was enough of that in the courses. So I wouldn't necessarily think that college isn't necessarily going to give you great software engineering introduction. You're going to get that from internships if you do internships or from side projects. If you have the time for side projects, this brings us back to questions about equity that we discussed in our breakout session, that not everybody has time to do side projects. So the thing is, if you're going to be a software engineer, if that's your goal, to be a software engineer, to actually write code, the most important thing to do is to write code. So you'd want to go to college where you are going to be writing a lot of code. So you can look to see what the curriculum is. Is it more focused on theory or is it more focused on programming projects? Like maybe there's a specific software engineering major. If that's your goal. For some people might have another goal, like maybe you want to go into academia and be a professor, and then in that point you would want a good research-based university. But if you're truly going to be a software engineer, and the thing that's going to help you out the most is writing software. So much comes from experience. So you can get that out of classes, but it really does vary based on the way that they teach the classes and how much time you have. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you. It helped a lot.
Okay, thank you for all the questions and answers. And I think since we're 10 minutes over our initially designed ending time, it's a great sign that we're engaged, but also I think it will be a good time to close. So when you, I wanted to mention that if you have any more questions, I think you can always get in contact with Pamela and us, and we can connect you to Pamela as well. And Supriya just posted our website link in the chat section. So if you want to check that out, if you want to contact us, please make sure to check out that page. And I'll leave it to Giovanni to close for us.
All right. Thank you for attending our meeting, everyone. Like Jessica said, if you want to stay informed about our current events or future ones, then you can follow us on our social media links posted in the chat. But I think our website and our Eventbrite will be great places to learn more about our future events. And if you guys want to keep in touch with us, then just do that. Have a great day.
And I wasn't sure. Oh, oops.
Oh, yeah. We'll also have a full meeting feedback. And that will be accessible, I think, there will be a link in the chat for this poll, just to see about your guys' experience. Okay. And there will be a link in the chat for the poll about your guys' experience about this event, and if you participate in more events. So I hope you guys had a good time and have a great day. Oh, we will also have featured speakers. Yeah, there's the poll. Okay, we'll check out our Eventbrite for future events especially, and I hope you guys can join us for our next events. Thank you.